January 24th, 1945, 07:15 hours. First Lieutenant Garland Connor stands in a frozen ditch 30 yards ahead of the American front line, watching 600 German soldiers and 6 Tiger tanks advancing directly toward him. He's holding a telephone connected to artillery batteries 3 miles away. The Germans are 200 yards out and closing fast. His battalion commander's voice crackles through the handset asking for coordinates. Connor looks at the advancing Tigers, looks at the German infantry moving through the trees, and gives an order that shocks everyone listening. Fire on my position. The artillery officer 3 miles away thinks he heard wrong. He asks Connor to repeat. Connor does. Those coordinates he just gave aren't for the German advance, they're for the exact spot where Connor is lying. He's calling American artillery fire directly onto himself because it's the only way to stop 600 Germans from overrunning his entire battalion. The officer asks him to confirm one more time. Connor confirms. Then he presses himself into the frozen earth and waits for American shells to start landing on his head. If you want to know how this impossible decision saved an entire battalion and why Connor's story stayed hidden for 53 years, hit that subscribe button. We're telling the stories textbooks forgot about, the moments that changed everything, the soldiers who should be household names but aren't. Connor is 25 years old, a tobacco farmer from Kentucky who never finished high school. He's 5'6", weighs 120 pounds, and he's been wounded 7 times in 4 years of combat. The last wound sent him to the hospital 3 weeks ago. He returned to his unit 2 days earlier, still healing, still in pain. He's an intelligence officer, which means he works with maps and reports in the command post, safely behind the front lines. Intelligence officers don't lead attacks. They analyze information. They stay away from the fighting. But at 07:15 this morning, when German artillery started destroying the American forward positions near Hausen, France, Connor made a different calculation. The German barrage killed the forward observers who could see the battlefield and direct artillery fire. Without observers, the American guns are blind. And without artillery, 6 Tigers will roll through 3rd Battalion's foxholes like they're made of paper. Connor picks up a telephone, grabs 400 yards of wire, and walks out of the command post into hell. He runs across open ground while German shells are landing all around him. The wire unspools behind him as he sprints through snow and frozen earth. Shells hit trees 70 yards ahead, exploding trunks into splinters. Shells land 20 yards behind him, the concussion wave hitting like a fist. He vaults over a destroyed tree trunk without stopping. Shrapnel hisses in the snow around his boots. His eardrums are hammered by blast waves until he can't hear anything except ringing. He reaches the American foxholes at 300 yards, but he doesn't stop there. He keeps running another 30 yards forward, alone, toward the enemy. He finds a shallow ditch 18 inches deep and drops into it. The telephone wire held during his run. He cranks the handset and gets through to the Fire Direction Center. He's now the eyes of the entire artillery battalion, 12 guns, 3 miles away, waiting for his coordinates. Everything depends on what he can see and whether he stays alive long enough to direct them. He raises his head above the ditch and sees the German attack forming up 200 yards away. Professional soldiers moving in squad formations. Behind them, the Tigers, 60-ton monsters pushing through trees like they're saplings. Connor gives coordinates, and the first American shells scream in 40 seconds later. They land 150 yards behind the Germans, too far. Connor adjusts. Drop 100, fire for effect. The second salvo lands in the middle of the German infantry. The forest erupts, trees disintegrate, 168 pounds of high explosive detonating among 600 men packed into attack formation. German soldiers disappear. The advance stops. Connor calls for repeat fire. The American guns are now firing maximum rate, 48 shells every 60 seconds, hammering the same killing zone. German infantry scatter, but the Tigers keep coming. Artillery can't stop Tigers. The 105mm shells bounce off their armor. Connor watches all 6 tanks break into open ground, advancing in wedge formation. Tank commanders standing in turrets, scanning for targets. One Tiger fires, and an American foxhole explodes. Another Tiger fires, another foxhole obliterated. The Tigers are 300 yards from the American line. In 4 minutes, they'll be inside the defensive positions, and once Tigers get into the rear of American lines, the entire battalion collapses. Connor shifts fire onto the tanks, but the shells aren't stopping them. One Tiger loses a track, another gets smoke damage, but 4 Tigers are still advancing, and they've spotted Connor's position. The tank commanders have seen the telephone wire. They know someone is directing the American artillery, and they're coming to kill him. Connor watches through his scope as the Tigers adjust course directly toward his ditch. He's 18 inches below ground level, not enough to stop an 88mm tank shell, not enough to stop machine gun fire, not enough to stop anything a Tiger can throw at him. The Germans are 150 yards away, close enough that Connor can see the Balkenkreuz markings on their turrets, close enough to see the tank commanders' faces. He lifts the handset one more time. Fire on my position. The fire direction officer makes him repeat the coordinates. Connor confirms. The officer asks him to confirm again because calling artillery on your own position means you might die from friendly fire. Connor confirms a 3rd time. 40 seconds later, the first shells land 30 yards in front of his ditch. The concussion feels like being hit by a truck. His lungs compress, his vision blurs. Frozen dirt and shrapnel scream overhead. The sound is beyond thunder. It's the sound of the world ending. Connor keeps the handset pressed to his ear. Drop 20, repeat fire. The next salvo lands closer. He can feel the heat from the explosions. Shrapnel tears through the air 6 feet above his head. If he stands up, he'll be shredded. If the shells land 10 yards closer, the ditch won't save him. But the Tigers have stopped advancing. The tank commanders button up their hatches. Even Tiger crews don't want to be outside their armor when American shells are detonating at point-blank range. Connor has created a wall of explosions between himself and the advancing Germans. He's trapped himself in the impact zone of American artillery, but he's also trapped 600 Germans on the other side of that wall. For the next hour, Connor stays in that ditch, calling fire. German shells land, trying to kill him. American shells land, following his orders. His position becomes the focal point of 2 artillery barrages. Soldiers in the American foxholes watch one lieutenant lying in a ditch ahead of their lines, refusing to move, calling thunder down on his own head to kill Germans. A private crawls out to join him with backup wire. The private gets hit by shrapnel but refuses to leave. Together they adjust fire, walk shells back and forth across the German advance, stop every attempt to rally. One Tiger takes a direct hit on its turret ring and can't traverse anymore. Another loses both tracks and the crew abandons it. The 3rd Tiger gets stuck in a crater, blind and immobile. All 6 Tigers destroyed or abandoned. German infantry tries one more push, gets within 10 yards of Connor's position. He drops artillery 5 yards in front of his ditch. The blast lifts him completely off the ground and slams him back into frozen earth. His ears go deaf, but the German soldiers who were 10 yards away are gone. 3 hours after Connor walked out of the command post, the German attack is over. 53 Germans confirmed dead, 78 wounded left behind, all 6 Tigers destroyed. American losses after Connor started directing fire, 0. He finally stands up. His legs barely hold him. 2 hours lying in frozen earth has locked his muscles. Soldiers emerge from foxholes staring at him, at the cratered moonscape where he'd been lying, at the destroyed Tigers scattered across 200 yards. The battalion commander recommends Connor for the Medal of Honor, but Connor goes home before the paperwork processes. He's been in combat 28 months straight, wounded 7 times. The Army rotates him back to Kentucky. He marries a woman named Pauline, becomes a tobacco farmer, never talks about the war. The medals stay in a cardboard box in a closet for 53 years. When people ask what he did, he says he did what needed doing and refuses to elaborate. In 1998, Connor dies. He's buried with his Distinguished Service Cross, never knowing he should have received the Medal of Honor. His widow, Pauline, fights for 20 years to get the award upgraded. She collects eyewitness statements from soldiers who watched Connor in that ditch. She sues the Army. She refuses to let his story disappear. Finally, on June 26, 2018, President Trump presents the Medal of Honor to Pauline in the White House. She's 89 years old. Her husband has been dead for 20 years. The second most decorated soldier in World War II after Audie Murphy, and almost nobody knew his name. Connor called fire on his own position because saving his battalion mattered more than saving himself. 600 Germans and 6 Tigers stopped by one man with a telephone and the willingness to die to use it correctly. If this story deserves to be remembered, hit that subscribe button and share this video. These soldiers gave everything. The least we can do is make sure their names don't disappear into silence.